Good afternoon. It's an honor to be with you. As I like to say, it's an honor to be any place they can pronounce my name correctly. This is a true story. I am not making this up. I am really not making this up. When I first ran for office in Illinois, I said, "Hi, my name is Raja Krishnamoorthi." And the person in Chicago looked right back at me and said, "Roger Christian Murphy. Very nice to meet you." And they said, "I didn't know the Irish made it to India." And so, in any case, it's wonderful to be with you. I want to observe those 3 rules of public speaking: be short, be sweet, and be silent. And so 3 points. First of all, can you give a big round of applause to MR, Sanjeev, and all of these wonderful people who put on today's event? And thank you for that lovely introduction, Neil. He has introduced me like 3 times. We should go on the road more. This is really something. Thank you for that, and thank you for your service. And Mr., I call him MR. He is the most networked person in the Indian American community in the country. Is that right? I mean, this guy is so wired that, he does it for the right reasons. I mean, if you have a question, if you have a problem, if you need something, you dial 1-800-MR. All of a sudden, he springs into action and good things happen. And I want to say also a special thank you to the Consulate General. Where's Mr. Reddy? Thank you so much for hosting us. I really appreciate the opportunity to visit your beautiful new offices, so thank you. And thank you to all of you. The second point I want to make is Indian Americans have arrived. They have arrived in this country in so many different ways. I've said these statistics before, but every time I say them, I get goosebumps. If you look at the 2020 census, you quickly discover how much progress the Indian American community has made in this country. It is the fastest growing ethnic minority in this country. It is the best educated. It is the most prosperous, and it's some of the best looking people I've ever seen. Okay, that was not in the census. I'm embellishing a little bit. But now I'm going to borrow from India Diaspora's own statistics. They did a report recently, and it's really telling how much progress the community has made. 10% of all doctors are Desi. 10% of all patents are owned by Desis. 60% of all hotel rooms are owned by Desis. 28 of the last 34 national spelling bee champions were Desi. I was not one of them. But if you want to spell success, you spell it D-E-S-I, Desi. Am I right about that? Desis have arrived in this country. Desis have arrived, and now, as your summit in its own title kind of summarizes kind of the next phase, how do we give back? How do we make sure that our success translates into success for the country and for the planet, for that matter? And so let me just tell you a little bit about my journey and why what you're doing today and talking about the issues of philanthropy and giving back matters so much to me. I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. So I was born in India. I was made in India, Mr. Reddy. I was made in India. I came to this country when I was 3 months old to Buffalo, New York, which is where my father was studying engineering at the University of Buffalo. And things were going great until suddenly the recession of the 1970s hit us like a ton of bricks. My father lost his income, but thanks to the generosity of the American people, we were allowed to move into public housing and food stamps. So I spent about half of my childhood in those 2 life-sustaining programs. And then after that, my father was able to get on his feet and then get a great job in, of all places, Peoria, Illinois. They loaded up the U-Haul and started driving and driving and driving until they reached Peoria. And that's where we entered the middle class. And pretty much every night at the dinner table, my father would say, think of the greatness of this country. Think of the greatness of this country, and whatever the 2 of you do, my brother Ram and me, just make sure this country is there for the next families who need it. And so that became the North Star of my personal compass. So fast forward through college and law school, I came back to Illinois. I helped to start the anti-corruption unit of the Illinois Attorney General's office, and business was good. Business was very... This was during the Rod Blagojevich years. Every contract was cooked. Every appointment was rigged. And so it was full employment for prosecutors throughout the state. So I learned how not to do government in that position. And then after that, I went back to the private sector. I ran a tiny company for about 7 years. And then I got elected to my current position as a U.S. Congressman for the 8th District of Illinois. And 5 terms later, almost a decade, I'm still pursuing that mission statement given to me by my parents, which is make sure this country is there for the next families who need it. And yes, you can clap. That is my mission statement. That is my why. That is my why. And I believe that's your why. I believe that's everybody here thinks about that a lot, especially now. Because let's just look at the challenges that are facing us today. Look at my own personal story. That legal immigration system that enabled us and our families to come here is being actively dismantled every single day. The public housing and food stamps that enabled us to survive is now on the chopping block today. And the public schools in Peoria, Illinois, and that enabled most of us in this room to kind of have access to the American dream, are under assault as we see, unfortunately, a government seek to close the Department of Education. So we in this room, in my humble opinion, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent, I think we're faced with one question, in my humble opinion, which is what kind of a government do we want? What kind of a government do we want? Do we want a government that's there for those fighting to make it? Or do we want a government that primarily caters to those who have it made? And I know my answer, and I think it's true for you too. We always want a government that cultivates the American dream for everyone. Regardless of who you are, regardless of whether you're working, poor, middle class, you're growing a business, or regardless of the color of your skin, how you pray, whom you love, or the number of letters in your name. There are 29 in mine. We want the government that enables everyone, the racial, religious, ethnic, minority, immigrant with 29 letters in his name to be able to succeed. And we want a government that brings people together, brings countries together, brings civilizations together. And so I close with this. The U.S.-India relationship is personal to most of us in this room, and it's personal to me. I believe that this relationship will help define this century and what kind of a world we're going to live in. To me, the closer these two countries are, the less likely that we, as a globe, enter into conflict, the more likely we generate the technologies of the future that help to lift hundreds and billions of people out of poverty, and the more likely that we will be able to sustain ourselves in each of our respective countries. And so when I see what's happening right now, it gives me great consternation, as it does probably to most of you. And so that's why I want all of you to remember that old saying in Washington, D.C., if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And unfortunately, many of us and our interests are on the menu today. So I ask you to do 3 things. I need everybody in this room. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care who you are. I need you to vote because it matters. Secondly, I need you to work on causes bigger than yourself. And those might involve bringing our two countries closer together, bringing our peoples together, making sure our institutions are talking to each other. And the third is running for office. It's time to run for office. I want all of you and your loved ones and friends to consider running for office. You know, Neil ran for commissioner of Montgomery County, fortunately in a place where his father was not delivering Republican babies, and he won. But I think everybody should consider running at any level of government. whether it is city council, whether it's the state house, whether it's state senate, whether it's Congress, and yes, whether it's the United States Senate. We need everyone to run at every level to make sure that we pull our seat to the proverbial table and make sure our voices are heard. Are you with me on this? This is basic. Again, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, it doesn't matter. Because we need to make sure that our voices are heard. We need to make sure our families, our communities, and the full strength and dynamism of our extremely vibrant community is heard. So with that, I just want to close with my favorite saying. Yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today's a gift. That's why we call it the present, MR. And so I just want to celebrate all of you, celebrate how you are doing such great good in your respective communities for not only yourselves and your communities, but for your country and indeed the planet. So thank you so much. God bless all of you. God bless America. And yes, Jai Hind. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Krishnamoorthi. I'd like to invite our Executive Director. Oh.
Let's take a couple of questions for the Congressman. Any questions?
Do you have another question? Okay. Look, this is a $100,000 tax on H-1Bs, right? I mean, that's basically what's happening. And as Ashaji and I and others were talking about before, basically, no one can afford this. I don't care if you're a small business. And I was with a bunch of small businesses and medium-sized businesses over the weekend. They are freaking out. They can't afford this. But even the largest companies won't foot this bill. Why? Because of the other hurdles that are in the way after you pay the $100,000 for the petition. Look, there's so many hurdles right now between actually filing the petition and actually getting the H-1B worker over here that it's too chancy to pay any amount of money. And so at this point, what we're going to end up doing is basically hampering, kneecapping our own tech industry in America. And at the end of the day, we have to realize this, folks. You either onshore the talent or offshore the jobs. That's the fundamental choice that we have to make. So what I'm saying to my friends and colleagues is, look, we need to develop the indigenous talent here. And we're working on it through skills-based education, career technical educational programs, and vocational education. And we're going to continue to do that. But in the meantime, we need to get the best and the brightest, the hardest working people over here, innovating, working in our industry, and creating wealth and prosperity here in America, not abroad.